Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the Week 13 NFL slate on DraftKings. We have 13 games on the main slate for Week 13, so one of the bigger slates we've had in a while. These last few slates have kind of just been like 10, 11 games. I got 13 games this week. We're going to go through each position and talk about some of my favorite plays at each position. Of course, I'll give my 5 core plays, 5 guys I expect to have a lot of exposure to across my lineups come Sunday. We've been able to hit on some good plays these last few videos. Hopefully we can do it again for this video. So let's go ahead and start off at quarterback. Patrick Mahomes, the most expensive quarterback this week. He's $7,600 facing the Raiders. Obviously a great spot for Patrick Mahomes. But at his price tag of $7,600, I don't feel like he's going to be a core play for me unless we get some value as the week goes on. We do have Carlos Hyde and TJ Yeldon potentially as value plays, cheap value plays, since Fournette's going to be suspended. But don't know like how much I'm going to have of those guys. I don't really feel safe with either one. Have a feeling they're going to split the workload. So I don't see a ton of value right now that's going to allow me to pay up for Mahomes. I think the mid-range, like the 6K range, is where there are a lot of good plays. Obviously, Cam Newton against Tampa Bay, great spot for him. Everybody played him last time he played Tampa Bay, and he kind of disappointed. I'd expect a bounce-back game here from Cam Newton. 6,600, I think I'd take the savings off of Mahomes and go down to Newton. Really like this spot for him. Also, on the other side of that game, I love Jameis Winston at 6K. I think he makes a lot of sense as a sort of cheaper option off the top expensive guys, off of Mahomes and off of Newton. Winston's just throwing the ball so much. This Tampa Bay offense, they're pass heavy. They don't run the ball a ton. They really don't have any good running backs. Winston threw the ball 38 times last week against San Fran, where they won by 18 points. He had 312 yards and 2 touchdowns. Also ran the ball 7 times for 24 yards, 25.88 DraftKings points last week from Jameis Winston. I'd expect another big game from Winston here. This Carolina defense has not been good as of late. I like this game potentially as a shootout. I think there are a lot of good plays from both sides. And Winston from the Tampa Bay side, really like him at 6K. Lamar Jackson's $100 cheaper. I do like Lamar Jackson in this spot against the Falcons. I think he has a lot of upside here, but feel safer going to Winston. Feel like Winston has a higher floor. Both guys have a pretty high ceiling, so definitely in tournaments you could go to Lamar Jackson. Tom Brady's $5,800, which obviously really stands out just price-wise, but I don't know if I could play Brady here. He just hasn't shown a lot of upside this year. The Patriots, when they're just playing conservative this year, Brady really hasn't been throwing the ball that much. Last week against the Jets, threw the ball 31 times in a 14-point win, 20 completions out of 31 attempts, 283 yards, 2 touchdowns. It was an okay game from Brady, but not really a great game. He hasn't eclipsed 20 fantasy points in 4 straight weeks. Honestly, would be surprised if he gets over 20 fantasy points against the Vikings. So even with Brady's cheap price tag, just don't know how much upside he has right now in his career. Probably going to be someone I avoid. Just think there are other guys I'd rather play. Kirk Cousins on the other side of that game, I think, is a little bit underpriced for his upside. The Vikings, they throw the ball a lot. There's a good chance they're trailing in this game. Cousins, I'd expect probably 300 yards and multiple touchdowns out of him. Would be surprised if he doesn't get there. At 5,500, I think he's probably one of the better value quarterbacks if you're trying to go cheap. Marcus Mariota as well at 5,200 at home against the Jets. I like this spot for Mariota. He was pretty solid Monday night in Monday Night Football against Houston. He had a pretty decent fantasy game. I think he had 24 or 25 DraftKings points. At home against the Jets, obviously a good spot for Mariota. If you want to play him at 5,200, definitely like him, like Cousins as well as value plays. But let's go ahead and move on to running back. So this is a position where we have good stud options up top. You got Todd Gurley, 9,300 against the Lions. Christian McCaffrey coming off a 50-point game. He gets a matchup this week against Tampa Bay. I don't think you're point chasing if you play McCaffrey here. He's in another great matchup this week against Tampa Bay, and I honestly think I'm probably going to pay up for him in more lineups than I do pay up for Gurley. I feel like McCaffrey's probably going to be one of my highest owned running backs come Sunday. Just love the spot for him. Tampa Bay's defense has not been good this year. These teams played in Week 9, and McCaffrey had a really nice game. 17 carries, 79 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Also got 5 catches for 78 yards. 32.7 DraftKings points for McCaffrey. I'd expect a similar game here with his pass game involvement on DraftKings being full PPR. He's just such a valuable play. Even when he's this expensive, I think he's worth the price tag. Really like Christian McCaffrey here. The guy been scoring touchdowns lately, just has so much upside. He's probably my favorite pay-up running back. I think I'd play him over Gurley. And Saquon Barkley's cheap. I do like Barkley as a price play. He should not be this cheap, even though it's a tough matchup against the Bears. And the Bears have been one of the best teams this year at defending running backs. With Barkley's just usage, with how much he's involved in the passing game, with how many carries he gets on a weekly basis, I think him and McCaffrey are probably my two favorite running backs if I'm paying up. I'll have some Gurley. Kareem Hunt, don't see myself going there much. I probably would play Barkley over Kareem Hunt. And DJ, Joe Mixon are in a price range where I probably won't be going to them. So mostly Barkley and McCaffrey at the top I really like. And then in the mid-range, I think Aaron Jones, 6,700 against the Cardinals, in a really good spot. Since that breakout game against the Dolphins, Aaron Jones has been getting a lot of work. He's been very efficient, been reliable for fantasy. His price is starting to get up there at 6,700, but still a play I'm going to have some exposure to. Then in the 5K range, there are two plays that I really like here. So first off, Matt Breida at 5,800. Really like this spot for him against the Seahawks. I think this is a nice spot for Matt Breida. He's had two straight 100-yard rushing games, 101 rushing yards against the Giants, 106 last week against Tampa Bay. He's been getting a lot of carries. He's been getting some work in the passing game as well. He's got 4 targets in back-to-back weeks. I'd expect probably 15 carries from Breida here and also about 4 to 5 targets. So most likely going to get 20 touches. And at 5,800, just too cheap for a guy that's going to get the workload that Breida should get. Alfred Morris was a healthy scratch last week. They do have a backup running back that got about 6 or 7 carries. Jeff Wilson, that's his name. Ended up getting about 6 or 7 carries, but Breida's the number one guy. He's getting most of the work. At 5,800 against the Seahawks, I do like him. I think he is a strong play, especially if the 49ers are going to be without their receivers again. Marquise Goodwin and Pierre Garçon both missed last week. I'd expect them to go a little bit run-heavy if both of those guys are out again. But now the other play that I really like at running back, a little bit cheaper than Breida, is Phillip Lindsay. He is 5,400. Don't expect him to be insanely popular this week, even though he's coming off 2 back-to-back really good games. Honestly, last 4 games been very good for Phillip Lindsay. He's been getting double-digit carries, been getting some targets on a weekly basis as well. But I don't expect Lindsay to be too popular because Royce Freeman's still getting some work. I think Royce Freeman got 6 or 7 carries last week. Devontae Booker, I almost said Devontae Freeman. Devontae Booker, he's pretty much not even in the committee anymore. He's getting maybe 5 or 6 snaps a game. It's mostly Lindsay that's getting most of the work. He's their number one back. If the Broncos were smart, they'd honestly just give all the work to Lindsay. He's been the most efficient running back, had 110 rushing yards last week against the Steelers, got in the end zone. Even though he didn't get any targets or any receptions, he still put up 20 DraftKings points. And this is a great spot for him against a Cincinnati defense that really just can't stop anybody right now. And against the run, they've been really bad this year. With Jeff Driscoll now starting at quarterback for the Bengals, I expect them to really struggle to put up points, so I imagine Denver would be playing with a lead, which should lead to Phillip Lindsay getting more carries. So at 5,400 with his price tag still relatively cheap, I really like him as a quote-unquote value running back in the 5K range. And then there are 2 value plays I want to hit on. So Gus Edwards at 4,800, even though he's not involved in the passing game, as long as Alec Collins is inactive again or if Collins is just not going to be involved, I think Gus Edwards at 4,800 is definitely in play against the Falcons. The Falcons have been one of the worst teams this year at stopping running backs. Gus Edwards getting a lot of work. With Collins out last week, he got 23 carries, 118 rushing yards. He's not involved in the passing game, which is a bit concerning, but still getting a lot of carries. And if Collins remains inactive, I expect the carries to be there again for Gus Edwards. 4,800, he's a value play I like. Then want to talk about the Jacksonville situation. So Leonard Fournette most likely going to be suspended for this game against the Colts. So we're going to see T.J. Yeldon and Carlos Hyde both get some work. Yeldon is 4,400. I think Carlos Hyde, he is 3,300. I imagine Carlos Hyde's going to get the first and second down work, and then in passing down situations, they'll bring T.J. Yeldon onto the field. It's going to be interesting to see what other people are saying about these 2 running backs. If they're going to be popular. I have a feeling that Carlos Hyde might be a little popular just because of how cheap he is, and I expect him to probably get double-digit carries. But he's not really going to get a ton of targets. That's where they're going to use T.J. Yeldon. T.J. Yeldon's more the passing down back. Obviously, the first and second down back, or those first and second down carries will go to Carlos Hyde. I feel safer going to Yeldon because, he's been involved all year. Carlos Hyde is new to the team, hasn't really been good so far when he's been in Jacksonville. Honestly, probably have a little bit of exposure to both guys. I don't expect them to be like my highest owned plays by any means. If we get more clarity throughout the week that maybe Hyde's going to handle all the workload, or if Yeldon is going to handle the majority of the workload, then maybe I'll get more interest in them. But right now, with them splitting duties, probably not going to be running backs that I go too crazy on, but they are both very cheap. So with how much they open up you to do at other positions, I will have some exposure to both guys, Yeldon and Carlos Hyde. But let's go ahead and move on to receiver now. Not a position where I like a ton of top plays. Tyreek Hill at 9,100, just can't pay that price tag for him, even against Oakland. I think I'd rather pay up for the expensive running backs over Tyreek Hill. I don't expect Hill to be popular this week, and I'm probably not going to be on him very much. Like Nuke against the Browns at 8,200, you could go to Mike Evans at 8,100 against Carolina, you could play. But I expect to be paying up for the expensive running backs, Barkley, McCaffrey, Todd Gurley. Don't see myself paying up at receiver a ton this week. Maybe like Adam Thielen against the Patriots, you could go to. Julio's underpriced for his bad matchup against Baltimore, but Julio's at home. I imagine the Falcons will be throwing the ball plenty in this game. Julio at 7,700 just as a price play is definitely a consideration for me. But I like some of the mid-range plays at receiver, and I do like some value here. So in the mid-range, there are guys here that I've been on a lot lately, but now their price tags are starting to get up. I was on Emmanuel Sanders last week. He was cheap at 5,500, had a good game. Now he's up to 6,300 in price. It is a good matchup, but at his price tag, probably would just rather get up to Kenny Golladay. I do like Kenny Golladay at 6,700. I don't love the price tag, but the Rams, their secondary has been really bad this year. I do believe they do get a key to lead back for this game, which should help. But with how much of a volume Kenny Golladay is getting with the targets he's getting, definitely in play for me. T.Y. Hilton, I want to have some interest in, but on the road against Jacksonville, even with the cheap price, would probably be avoiding T.Y. Hilton this week. If he was at home, maybe would have a little bit more interest, but on the road, we know T.Y. is not nearly as good on the road as he is at home. Plus, it's not a great matchup with Jalen Ramsey. But now in the 5K range, there are two plays I like here. I do like DJ Moore, 5,600 against Tampa Bay. Definitely a guy you could go to, especially if you're playing Cam Newton and you want to stack him with somebody. And then if you do decide to go to Mariota as a value quarterback, Corey Davis, 5,500, for sure an option you could consider as a quote-unquote value receiver. I do like Corey Davis, like him and DJ Moore in the 5K range. And then going to 5K and below, the really cheap value plays. So I like pairing my quarterback with a receiver down here. Adam Humphries, just 4,200. Really like him as a value play. Really, really cheap. He's been getting targets pretty much every week these last few weeks. 6 targets last week against San Francisco. 6 catches, 54 yards, and did find the end zone. He has scored 2 weeks in a row. Would not be surprised if he scores again in this game against the Panthers. I do like this game to shoot out. I think there are a lot of good plays from both sides. And Adam Humphries at 4,200 as a value receiver. Not sure he has a ton of upside. Don't think we're going to get this massive game from Humphries, but would not be surprised if we get a similar game to last week's. 6 catches, 60 yards, a touchdown, 18 DraftKings points at 4,200. Definitely something I will take. So I do like Adam Humphries a lot as a cheap value receiver if you want to go down here. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to tight end now. So at tight end this week, there are a few clear plays to me, in my opinion. So Jack Doyle is going to be on the IR. Eric Ebron's only 4,200 against Jacksonville. Not the greatest matchup, but Ebron's probably going to be the tight end I'll land on the most this week. Without Jack Doyle, I expect him to play the majority of tight end snaps. Expect him to get the majority of targets. Even when Doyle's been healthy this year, Ebron's still been involved. Without Doyle, I expect him to be even more involved. So the snaps should go up for Ebron in this game. The targets should go up as well. Just a really good option at 4,200. He's cheap now because Jack Doyle came back and cut into Ebron's workload. They reduced Ebron's price. And now that Doyle's not healthy and not going to play, Ebron is too cheap. Should have been like 5.4 or 5.5K, up there with Gronk and Kittle and Price. At 4,200, definitely the clear tight end play in my opinion. But if you don't want to go to Ebron, or if you're playing multiple lineups and you want to play multiple tight ends, obviously Travis Kelce, 7K against Oakland, you could go to. Just don't see myself paying up for tight end a ton this week. Gronk I was on last week because of how cheap he was. He did catch a touchdown last week. He did get 7 targets last week. 3 catches, 56 yards, and a touchdown. Gronk finally scored. Would not be surprised if he gets in the end zone again. He looked pretty healthy, at least on that play. I did watch the play where he scored. He looked pretty good on that play. I believe it was double coverage. He managed to come down with the ball. So at 5,400, if you're paying up at tight end, I don't mind Gronk this week. Obviously, love Ebron. Greg Olsen, 4,100 is for sure in play. Cameron Brate, 3,700. Again, as a value tight end, I expect a lot of people to go there. I don't mind him. He scored last week. Would not be surprised if he scores again. I do like Cam Brate. Probably would rather get up to Ebron, but Brate's definitely in play as a cheaper play. But let's go ahead and move on to defense now and quickly talk about this position. So always try and go cheap here. Usually don't pay up. If you were to pay up, I think my favorite play would probably be the Titans at 3K at home against the Jets. But like I said, I'd like to go a little bit cheaper. The Packers at home against the Cardinals really stand out to me at 2,800. Definitely like the Packers. Really like the Dolphins as well at home against the Bills. 2,700, you could go there. The Chiefs on the road. Don't like playing defenses on the road, but the Chiefs are only 2,500. And they're in a great spot against Oakland. So the Packers, Dolphins, and Chiefs are probably my favorite defenses. At least they stand out to me early looks at this slate. The defenses I expect to be on come Sunday. Usually don't spend too much time on this position. Defense, really hard to predict. Kind of just see a defense you like at home against a bad team. That's usually the defense I roll with. Packers, Dolphins, Chiefs, the ones that stand out to me. So yeah, guys, I think that's it for defense, and I think that's it for the video. So hopefully you did enjoy this video, and hopefully it helped you. If you enjoyed the video, just make sure you click that like button. I would appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe if you have not already. If you do have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT, or you can leave any comments down below. I will reply to your comments as soon as I can. But yeah, guys, good luck on this Week 13 slate. We'll see you back in the next video. Peace.